Hey Stampers! We're just going to give it a minute for a few people to log in here before we get started. I'm going to set up my screen. Be sure to say hi as you come online so I know who we've got joining us today. Let's see here. Does anybody have any fun plans for this weekend? Okay, let's see here. All right, I think, hey Marie Liz, how are you this morning? It's been a long time since I've seen you. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and jump right in. I've got actually a little bit to share with you today. I'm only doing one project because it's a little bit more involved than some of the other ones that I've done. But first we're going to, actually let me introduce myself for those of you who might be new. My name is Sherry Roth and I'm a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from Sherwood Park, Alberta, Canada. And I'm happy to be here today with you to share an easel card using the Blended Seasons bundle that's available this month. Every Friday at 11 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, I go live on Facebook, and I'd love to have you join us. I do also post the replay on my blog, which is www.stamptreasures.com. So if you can't catch it live, you know that you can always watch the replay. All right, okay, so first things first is let's go ahead and draw the winner from last week's Facebook Live. So the winner for today will get these two cards that we created last week. Good morning, Shara. So these will be popped in the mail for them. So I've got everybody's name in, and the way that you get your name in is by commenting that you're here, asking questions, just participating in the conversation if you're watching live. If you share this video, then you get 5 entries. For each comment, you get an entry, and then you always have from the day the video goes live, so today until the following Thursday, to post or comment. So if you can't catch it live, then you still have the opportunity to win. And our winner is Beth M, and I believe she's won before too. All right, so these will go in the mail to her. Let's put this out of the way. Okay, so now just give me a second here. I'm going to flip the camera down so that we can go ahead and get started. And then there's always just a bit of a delay for me to be able to see what you guys are seeing. Try to make sure it's somewhat straight. Kind of organize with the lights so that you guys can see what I'm doing and have fewer shadows. Okay, that looks pretty good. All right, so today we are creating this pretty card using the Blended Seasons bundle. And the thing that's special about this card is it pops up like an easel. So let me put it, so when it's sitting on the table, this is what it looks like. It's really, really beautiful. And it's really simple to create, actually. It does take a little bit of time because we are coloring these images, and then this does need to be fussy cut. So it does take, that part does take time, but the actual card base and how this is created is amazingly simple. Okay, so like I said, we are using the Blended Seasons bundle. This bundle is available until August 31st, or while supplies last. And you've heard me talk about this bundle. I am in love with this bundle. I find it so incredibly versatile, and I have used it a ton. I still have one more thing that I want to create with it, and that is a scrapbook page, at least one scrapbook page. So you might see that on my blog. Well, you will see that on my blog before the end of the month. All right. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. The first thing that we're going to do is I've got a piece of 4 1/4 by 11 inches of Whisper White cardstock. Of course, that's the way it goes. Marie Liz just said that the power went out in her office. Oh, she's got an early Stampin' Up! Lunch. Oh, well, that's good. That worked out well. Okay, so we've got Whisper White cardstock, and normally my card bases I use our thick Whisper White, but for this one you want to use just our regular Whisper White, and you'll see why in just a minute. I did score it at 5 1/2 inches, so I'm going to fold along that score line and use my bone folder to make it really nice and crisp. Okay, and then I've got a 1/4 sheet of Flirty Flamingo cardstock. So this measures 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And I'm going to pull in my Big Shot because we're going to do some Big Shot cutting. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out my framelits, and I'm using this largest label shape. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to line this up so that it sticks off. Can you guys see that? So it sticks off the top of so the folded bit is at the top. So the seam is at the top. And then I'm putting the framelit so it just sticks up just a little bit above it. And then I just want to make sure it's straight. Let's push it back on a little bit. So I can see a little tiny bit of the cutting mat there. Let's move it down just a little bit. All right. And then I'm going to feed that through. Trying to do this a little bit gently so that I don't wobble the table. Happy Friday to you too, Shirley. And then I'm going to come back. Because we're cutting through 2 layers, that's the reason why we want to use our regular Whisper White cardstock and not our thick Whisper White cardstock. And that's why I'm running it through twice, just to make sure it cuts through both of those layers nicely. So there we go. And then that's garbage. But look, by leaving that little extra bit at the front, at the top, it just allows us to create a card that opens up. Okay, so I'm going to set that aside because the other thing that I want to do is I want to use this same label shape, and I'm going to cut it out of Flirty Flamingo cardstock. Now, the sample that I showed you is actually done in Calypso Coral, but you're going to see 3 different colors today. So I decided I didn't want to make multiples in the same color. I wanted to see what they look like in different colors. All right, so now I've got the shapes that I need and all the Big Shotting is done. So we can move this guy out of the way. All right, and I forgot my paper cutter. I tell you, every week I forget something. Hang on just a second, let me grab that. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to take this white piece and we are going to score it right where these points are. That's the center. So I'm going to line up the points with the groove in my paper cutter and take the light tool here and just score it. Okay, and then we're done with this. And then this is just going to get folded like this. So it gets folded down, so like a mountain fold. All right, so that is the base of our card. And then this will get stuck on here like this. So we'll add adhesive just to this bottom bit. So I'm going to use my Fast Fuse, but you can use any adhesive. And I'm going to line it up. Because it's exactly the same shape, it will line up perfectly. There we go. So there's the card base. See how simple that was? Okay, so now let's get on to the fun stuff. Okay, so for those of you who are, hey Lisa, good morning. So those of you who are just joining us, this is the card that we're making. That's the front of it, and then it pops up. So it's an easel card. So that's how it looks when it stands. Okay. All right, so I've got the floral image from the Blended Seasons stamp set. I've got a piece of Whisper White cardstock that measures 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And I am coloring with the Stampin' Blends markers. So whenever you use the Stampin' Blends markers, those are alcohol markers. So you want to use Memento ink, okay? Because you don't want the ink to blend with the markers and make it look like a muddy mess. Okay, so I'm inking that up really nicely. I'll stamp it down in the corner just to conserve. It's going to be cut out, but that just conserves my white cardstock. That way I can use the rest. Just apply a nice bit of pressure. Make sure I've got all of those knot lines nice and crisp. And then the other thing I need to do is stamp it again. And you know what? We are going to have to, I didn't bring an extra piece of white cardstock, so we are going to, the joys of live crafting, hey? Now, if this was a video, I would just stop it and restart if I was recording this. But no, this is live, so you know what? This is what real life crafting is like, right? Okay, so now what I need to do is I want to have an extra one of this flower right here. Was it that flower actually? No, it's this top flower. So I'm thinking, I had a class using this set last night, and I'm thinking of a different card. We needed that middle flower. So I'm just going to ink up the top bit and then stamp it on this white cardstock. Okay, so now I've got those bits done, and now I'm going to color. Now, I wanted to do, I've had a couple questions about the difference between our Stampin' Blend markers and our Stampin' Write markers. So we have two different kinds of markers. These ones are the ones, the Stampin' Write markers are the ones that we've carried for years and years and years. These are water-based markers. They're dye ink. So these ones you can use, they've got two tips. So they've got a fine tip and a brush tip, just like these ones. These ones you can use right on your stamps. So if you wanted to, maybe you didn't want to ink this entire flower image all in one color, you could ink up the petals in pink, the centers in yellow, the leaves in green, and use all the markers, color the whole thing, and then huff on it and stamp. And you would have a multicolored image. So these markers are great for that. You can also color in using these markers. However, I'm going to show you the difference between what they look like between the Stampin' Blends and the Stampin' Write markers. The other thing that you can do is you can use these, you can color right on a block and then use a wet paintbrush or an aqua painter and pull the color off of there and color in an image. So that's another use for it. And there are a few techniques out there that you can use these with as well. Good morning, Kim. All right, so I want to show you, I did a little test this morning because I wanted to make sure that there was an awful lot of a difference, and just like I expected there is. So this is our Stampin' Write marker. I'm going to take it and I'm going to color. Now I'm being careful because I don't want to go over this because I stamped this with Memento ink with the intention of coloring it in with our Stampin' Write mark or Stampin' Blends. If you're coloring in with the Stampin' Write markers, you want to use either StazOn ink or our retired archival ink. Okay, just so it doesn't bleed. So that's why I'm avoiding the lines. Okay, so that is just colored in just with the brush tip. I could go over and add a bit of shading, but I can't blend it. If you are using watercolor paper, you could probably go over it with an aqua painter and it would blend a little bit. But look at the difference when you use our dampen blends. So this is Flirty Flamingo. This was Flirty Flamingo as well. And in our Stampin' Blends, we have two different shades. So we've got a light and we've got a dark. And these are alcohol-based markers. So remember how I said with the Stampin' Write markers, you can use these right on your red rubber. You don't want to do that with your alcohol markers. These are meant for coloring. It's possible that there are techniques out there that you can do with them, but I haven't come across a ton of them. I also haven't gone looking for them. So I'm just coloring in just like the other ones. I'm using a very light touch. So this is light Flirty Flamingo. Because I stamped with Memento ink and I'm using the right kind of markers, I can go right over those lines and not worry about them bleeding. And now I'm going to take my dark and just add a bit of highlights with the dark, and then I'm going to go back with the light. So really, when you use alcohol markers, it's all about layering the colors. Okay, so then when you look closely, see the difference? Like there is a huge difference between the two. This just has so much more depth because it's got the shadowing in it. It's a little bit darker and then it gets gradually lighter. And you can see the difference in the colors. So Flirty Flamingo, I mean, it looks good with both because they are both Flirty Flamingo. They're just different shades of the same color. Okay, so I wanted to share the difference between those markers, but let's go ahead and color. I'm gonna put this one away so I don't accidentally use it. Let's go ahead and color. I'm not gonna color this whole image. You guys don't need to see me color that much. So I'm just adding my lightest color first. You can add your darkest color first and then go over and blend with your lightest color. I just prefer to add my bottom layer and then add the darker colors on top. There's really no right or wrong way. The other thing that I like to do is I like to work in smaller pieces, like I wouldn't necessarily, or smaller areas. So I wouldn't necessarily color this whole flower because the alcohol markers do dry relatively quickly. So I'm just going back and just blending those colors, and it just softens that transition part. Does anybody else love our alcohol markers? This is the dark, isn't it? Yeah. Oh, I want light. Okay, so we'll do the one flower. So again, I'm just adding a little bit of color. The other thing I try to do is not get too close to the lines, because the color does spread a little bit, especially the more layers that you add. Okay, so I'm putting my lighter coat on first, and then go in and add my highlights. Oops. Or my shadows, I guess. Okay, and then blend again with the light. All right, and see how much dimension that gives it? Now for the center of the flower, I'm going to use some Daffodil Delight. So I've got my light Daffodil Delight, and I'm just gonna color the center of the flower. And then I'm gonna take my dark Daffodil Delight. And because these are so tiny, I'm actually just adding just a little dot to each one of these little center pieces. And then I'm gonna use, I haven't actually used Granny Apple Green yet. I just got this. This is one of the new colors. I just got it in yesterday. Oh, Kim says she can't wait to get them all. I know, they are, oh man, they're amazing. I just can't get enough coloring with these markers. Okay, so I'm using my light Granny Apple Green, and I'm gonna color the whole thing, the whole leaf here. The other thing that you can tell if you look closely is on the Stampin' Write markers, you can see the brush marks, whereas on the alcohol markers, you can't see the brush marks. So that's another thing that I love about the alcohol markers. Okay, so then I'm just adding a little bit of green kind of around the veins of the leaves. And then I'll go back with my light and blend. And I am not an artist. I don't know where to add. I should be adding shading or anything, but these markers are really forgiving. Okay, so there we go. Isn't that pretty? Oh, I love those two colors together. So nice. Okay, so then pretend that I've colored the whole thing. So you would want to go through and you'd want to color all of these, and then also this one single flower as well. So through the magic of video, we've got some done. So this particular one I colored with rich raspberry and old olive. And then I've gone ahead and fussy cut them all. A little trick or a little tip, some of these parts, like these three little pieces right here, they're really hard to get your scissors in. So I used an aqua painter, an X-Acto knife, and cut those out before I cut around the outside, because that gives you a lot larger of a surface to hold on to. Whereas if it's cut and you're trying to cut in there, you don't want to it to slip and then accidentally cut your finger. So it just makes it a little bit easier to cut those little pieces out first before you cut the whole thing out. All right? Okay, so now let's move on to our card. Oh, and you know what I did? I stuck this on. I shouldn't have stuck this on. This was meant for I should have done the purple one on there. Okay, well, we are going to pretend that this is on the card base. Okay, so I'm gonna use some mini dimensionals. I will finish off the Flirty Flamingo one when I'm done, when the video's done, and I'll post a picture of the Flirty Flamingo. I'll post a picture of all three together. That way you guys can see the difference between the three different colors. Okay, so I'm just using some mini dimensionals and quite a few of them actually. And I just want a little one in here. Okay, so let's put that in there. Peel these off, and we are going to stick this onto our, what should be the card base, but is actually only the card front because of my little oops. I guess I could go grab another sheet of white, but okay. So I'm going to stick that on there, and it's okay if it overhangs just a little bit because this has plenty of room to fit into a medium-sized envelope. All right, and then this guy's gonna go in on the inside, but what we wanna do first is you'll see that on the sample, I have used the thank you, but you can see that the stamp itself is all on one line, and I've done it on two. So I'm going to share how I did that. Oh, wrong one. And where is the thank you? Oh, here it is. Okay, so I'm going to use my Stamparatus again this week. I used it last week as well. And okay. All right, so this is left from last night's class. We don't need that. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull in my card. Actually, you know what? I do need this. So what I've done is I've created, nope, this is not the right one. I need this one. This piece that you've cut out. So remember the negative space from this. I'm gonna use that as a template. Position this right in here, and then use my magnet to hold it in place. That way, if for some reason when I lift this up and it moves, I know exactly where it was so that I can line it up perfectly to re-stamp if I need to. Okay, now let's hope that this thank word fits in here. I think I'll have to do it up a little bit higher. Okay, so I'm gonna position that on there. I always like to lift it up, and there are grid lines on here, so I use the grid lines to try to ensure that it's straight, and that looks okay, but then just to make sure, I have my old imaging sheet from my Stamp-A-Majig, but you can use, if you don't have the Stamp-A-Majig, you can use anything that's plastic. So if you've got like a window sheet or a transparency or even some old packaging that is just clear, you can use that. All right. And then we are going to use a black Stampin' Write marker. So remember I talked about the difference between Stampin' Write markers and Stampin' Blends. I'm going to use the paintbrush end, or the brush end, and just color right on my stamp. And you'll see that I'm using the marker at an angle, not using the tip of the marker. This will just prolong the life of your markers. And then I'm going to stamp on this imaging sheet, and this will allow me to check to see if it's straight and that it fits properly. And I'm happy with that. So I'm going to go ahead, move that out of the way, re-ink this. And then stamp it on my card, and then grab a cloth, wax paper. Yeah, wax paper would probably work too. As long as you could see through it, then it would work. Good idea, Andrew. Okay, so we'll just wipe that off. And then I'm going to bring in my scrap and just make sure that there's no residue left. Yeah, we're good. Okay, so now what I need to do is I need to reposition this because I'm repositioning it for the word you. So we'll do exactly the same thing. So I've moved it down a little bit. I've positioned it on there. I'm going to pull it up. And that is very not straight. Okay, and then I'll put it back on here, bring in my imaging sheet, and now I'm going to ink up the word you. And stamp on my imaging sheet just to make sure that it's straight and that I'm okay with the positioning and the spacing. And that, I'm happy with that. That looks good. Move that out of the way, re-ink it. And then stamp, oops. Stamp it again. And there we go, look at that. It's perfect. So there's another use for your Stamparatus. Okay, let's give this a clean, move it out of the way. Okay, that out of the way. All right, so at this point, we should be assembling our card. So this would actually be on here, so on our card base. Now we have to do the inside. You know what, I'm gonna grab another white because I want this to be done. So hang on just a sec. Okay, sorry about that. All right, and of course my white wasn't open. Darlene came to my rescue this morning. I ran out of white, Whisper White cardstock. How is that possible? Like, that's crazy. So thankfully she lives really close and she was at class last night, so she offered to drop off a package for me this morning in my mailbox. So thank you so much, Darlene, if you're watching this. Okay, so I am going to cut it at 4 1/4. So we're remaking the card base. Okay. And then I'm going to score at 5.5. And again, fold it so it's nice and crisp. And then I'm going to bring in my Big Shot again. And line this up so that it's just above that score line. Is that straight? Looks good. No, it doesn't. Okay, and then feed this through twice because we're cutting through 2 layers. Okay, so we'll move this, remove that, and then we've got our card base. Separate that, bring in the paper cutter, and then remember I need to score it down the middle for the front piece. So I'm just going to line up these 2 points. And then fold it in a mountain fold. All right, and then we want to stamp on the inside. So on the original sample, I stamped "You Are the Greatest," which is from the Tropical Chic stamp set. So, oh, here's another tip for you. I always keep little cello bags filled with the extra pieces, like extra die cuts, extra pieces that I don't end up using. And that way when I pull out the set again, maybe there's something that I can use to save time. And of course I don't have a block, so let's use this massive one. I tell you, today, maybe I wasn't meant to do a Facebook Live today. So I'm using my mat to line up my words so that they are straight. That looks pretty good. And we can use the memento. And I'm going to stamp it in the center of my shape on the inside of my card. Let's make sure that this is straight here. Okay. So now we've got the greeting on the inside, and then this extra flower that we stamped, we are going to use dimensionals and pop that up on the inside. And that is going to be what will allow our card front to stand up. So I'm going to pop that in. Where do we want it? How did I do this one? Okay, I did it more like this. Okay, so now we're going to take this and we're going to stick this on this front bit. Where's my adhesive? Oh, there it is. So what does everybody got planned for this weekend? Anything fun? My daughter is in a co-ed beach volleyball tournament with her boyfriend. So tomorrow I'm hoping to catch a couple of their games because I missed the last tournament that they were in. Okay, so now we've got it and it stands up perfectly. The last thing we want to do is we want to add, I've got some of our Share What You Love artisan pearls, and I'm going to add, I think I'm going to do pink. So I've got my handy dandy. Kim says she's got, or her son has a curling camp. Oh, that sounds like fun. That sounds like lots of fun. Okay, so we will add, let's put one here. Marie Liz asked if mini dimensionals are thinner. No, they're just smaller in size, but they're the same thickness as our regular dimensionals. The only thing that's different is if you get a Paper Pumpkin subscription, the dimensionals that come in a Paper Pumpkin kit, I think are just a little bit higher than our regular dimensionals. So I find combining the mini dimensionals with the dimensionals from the Paper Pumpkin kit, that doesn't work so well. But if you're using the ones that we sell directly through Stampin' Up, then those are the same height. So you can combine the two. Okay. Oh, so I guess I should have mentioned this in case you missed last month's or last week's Facebook Live. This is a handy new tool that is in the holiday catalog. It's called the Take Your Pick tool. It is a fabulous new tool that will be available starting September 5th. So on one side, it's got a paper piercer, and then you can unlock it, flip it around, and then there's an extra tool. And this is great if you've stuck something down and it's not straight and you need to remove it. You can slide this underneath to remove it. And then on this end, oops, on this end, it's got a little putty so that you can pick up like little sequins or beads or anything or something like that and then position them. And it just saves your fingers getting sticky. So that's an exciting new tool that's coming out. So there we go. There we've got our two cards. So one in Rich Razzleberry, one in Calypso Coral. And here they are standing up. And then I'll do the Flirty Flamingo one and post a picture of that as well. So can you guys see those? Let's turn them this way. Are they pretty? So pretty. And it's really not that difficult to make. Like I said, it takes a little bit of time because you do need to color it in and then fussy cut it. But it's a beautiful card. I love it. So the last thing that I want to mention is if you are Canadian and there are supplies that you want to purchase and you don't already have a demonstrator, then you're more than welcome to order from my website, and with a $50 order using this hostess code, you'll receive a free bolt of this black crochet trim, as well as a handmade thank you card in the mail. And then I also wanted to remind you about my Stampin' Blends Club. So the deadline is coming up. The deadline to sign up is August 15th, and we will be meeting for 4 months. Whether you could do it in person or online, that's fine. Anybody across Canada can participate. Each month you'll get a selection of the new Stampin' Blends. So it includes it includes 17 sets, combo packs of the Stampin' Blends. So there's 6 new ones in the holiday catalog. And then in the annual catalog, we've got, I think there's 11 new sets. So by the end of the club, you will have all of these ones with the N, plus the 6 new color combos that are in the holiday catalog. You get a free package of the Graceful Glass Vellum, which is this beautiful vellum, pre-printed vellum that you can color in using your Stampin' Blends. So this vellum here. And you'll get 4 free classes. And each class we create 2 cards. Thank you, Peggy. And that's over $75 worth of free product, or free goodies that you end up getting at the end. So the cost is $60 a month, and basically that expense is just broken out over 4 months. And yeah, so the deadline to join is on August 15th, and I will post a link in the comment section of this video for you to get all the details if that's something that you're interested in joining. All right, so thank you guys for watching. Have a lovely weekend, and I will see you next Friday.